in this video I'm going to be going over game 2 from Prep Test 73. I'm just going to do the setup and maybe a couple of the questions. All right. At a business symposium, there will be exactly 5 speakers: L, M, X, Y, and Z. Each speaker will give exactly 1 speech in either the gold room or the rose room. Okay, gold or rose. In each room, there will be exactly 1 speech at 1 p.m. Okay, so this applies to both of the rooms. 1 speech at 1 p.m., 1 speech at 2 p.m. In one of the rooms yet to be determined, there will also be a speech at 3. Okay, so we're not sure which room that last one's going to be in. All right, M's speech must be earlier than L's. M is earlier than L, so it's going to be closer to the top. That's earlier. And in the same room, so I'm going to put them in a vertical box there to note that they're in the same room. So they're either both in the gold room or they're both in the rose room. That's kind of a longer form way of doing it. You don't have to do that. You could just do M and L in a box. Neither X's speech nor Y's speech can be earlier than Z's. Okay, so X can't be earlier than Z and Y can't be earlier than Z. So what does that leave us with? Well, we could have Z earlier than both of them. We could have Z at the same time as Y and earlier than X. We could have X at the same time as Z and earlier than Y. And I say Z because I'm Canadian rather than Z, which is the American pronunciation. Okay, so these are our options that are acceptable and these guys are not. If L's speech is in the gold room, LG, then X and Z's speeches must both be in the rose room. The contrapositive would be if X is not in the rose room, but rather in the gold room, or if Z isn't in the rose room and is in the gold room, then L can't be in the gold room. L has to be in the rose room. Okay. Great. So that's the setup. Let's do the first question. Make sure we've got, we can apply our rules. So M has to be earlier than L. So we can eliminate D. Okay. And they have to be in the same room as well, so we can eliminate E. Then we can't have X or Y before Z, so we can eliminate B. And if L is in the gold room, then X and Z should be in the rose room. So L in the gold room, X should be in the rose room, so C isn't allowed, right? We have L in the gold room, but then X is also in the gold room, so that's not allowed. So A is the correct answer, and let's write that out in the format that I've created here, which is just sort of a 90 degrees away from the other one, because you could have done gold, rose, and then 1, 2, 2, that's 1, that's 2, and then the 3 p.m. one, we don't know which room it's in. So you could have done it like that, right? Which matches the way that it is in the first question. I'm sure there are other ways of writing this out. You just kind of want to make sure that you're making the same deductions that I'm making. So the connections between the rules, the way that you're applying the rules, you want that to be as similar as possible to how I'm doing it, unless maybe you find a more efficient way to do it. Yeah, in terms of notation, I'm not like a stickler about that it has to be the same notation that I'm using. Like I don't do that with my students, so I don't think you need to worry about that part, right? Nobody's looking at your scrap paper except you. Okay, so where was I? Right. We have an acceptable solution now because we know that A is the correct answer. So I like to write out my acceptable solutions so that I can potentially make use of them later. So we've got GR. It also gives me a chance to double check that I've got the correct answer before I move on to the next question. We've got M, L, Z, X, Y. So it's this option that we've got, Z before X and Y. M and L are both in the gold room. M is before L. L is in the gold room, and X and Z are both in the rose room. So we know that that's an acceptable solution. Let's do some other questions. So 9, which one of the following pairs of speeches cannot be given at the same time? So for this one, how would I go about answering this question? So strategically, I would be looking for players that are unlikely to be at the same time. And so I would be looking for a player that is going to have to be like later in the day, and a player that has to be earlier in the day, and kind of trying to see, you know, whether it might be like, is it impossible to have them at the same time? So I could look at M and X and Y, but because it's M and X, their relationship, and M and Y, their relationship would be the same. That's not as tempting to me as looking at Z, which has to have, or can't be later than 2 of the players, right? And has to have at least one of them after it, and L, which has to have at least one before it. I'm more thinking about L and Z, that they probably can't be at the same time. So what am I going to do? I'm going to try to force them to be at the same time and see what happens. So if we put ML here, and then try to put Z and L at the same time, we're going to end up putting X or Y in front of Z. And the same thing would happen if we put M and L in the rose room and tried to put Z at the same time as L in the gold room. So from this, we sort of discover that there's no way that Z can be second, right? Can be at 2 o'clock. Z's going to have to be at 1 in order to make sure that it's before X or Y, right? So hopefully that's something that you can discover there. If not, then you'll kind of have to make that deduction later on. But certainly L and Z can't be at the same time, and so B is the correct answer for question 9. That's question 8. 9 is B. Right, and let's do question 12. So if Y's speech is at 1 p.m., okay, and I'll add that up here in pencil. So I'm not really going to worry about which room it's in quite yet. I'm just going to add it at 1 o'clock. And so we've got Y at 1 p.m. If that's the case, we can't have Y before Z, so they're going to have to be at the same time. And then we're going to have M and L be in the same room as each other. I'm just going to try putting them over here, and X is going to have to be after Z. Okay, so this one works out with this rule because we've got both of these guys in the gold room and L is in the rose room. If we switched it up and we put Y in the gold room and Z in the rose room, then we could, so as soon as we put X in the gold room, we have to put L in the rose room. But we could also avoid it and put X in the rose room and M and L in the gold room, that would be fine as well. So these guys can switch. Yeah, so that's pretty much our options. What could be true? L's speech is at 1 p.m. Nope, L is going to have to be at 3. So A and B are out. M is 2 p.m. in the gold room. Yep, M could be at 2 p.m. X is at 3 p.m. Nope. X is at 1 p.m. Nope. So this one, actually, if you just focus on the time, then you're fine. You don't really need to worry about the rooms for the specific question, but they might have made that more challenging, I guess, if they wanted to. So C is the correct answer. Yeah. Okay, hopefully that helps. If you have follow-up questions, please let me know.